Okay. Today I'm going to talk about the rest of Chapter 11, which is the end of Jefferson's presidency and the beginning of Madison's and our involvement in the War of 1812. You know that Washington advised to stay out of European affairs, stay out of alliances, which we did. We stayed out. But with Napoleon in Europe, fighting off the British or fighting against the British and their allies, this is going to put us in a unique predicament that we hadn't really been in before. The reality is that once Napoleon dumps or gets rid of Louisiana, he's got the money to start really going and fighting against Britain again, which he does. And through a couple of battles, Great Britain ruled the seas, we know, with their navy, but France ruled the land of Europe. So they're kind of at this deadlock, and so they're looking at ways to cripple the other one so that they can win this war. So one of the things that you would always do in a war is cut off your enemy's supply lines. And so that meant hurting us. Now, not that they did it directly with that goal in mind, but we were a neutral nation trading with both Britain and France, which neither one of them are going to prefer. Sorry, I have a cough drop so I don't just start hacking away during the middle of this video. In 1806, Britain enters what they call passes what they call the Orders in Council. This law said that all ports in Europe were closed to foreign trade with France, or that ports under French control were closed to trade unless those ships stopped at a British port first. Britain's not going to let people trade with her enemy. So Napoleon counteracts and says that any ship that goes into a British port will be seized by the French. So we cannot win. We are stuck in the middle. If we try to go to France, the British are going to seize our ships. If we got to go to French port, the British are going to... Did I say that backwards? You get what I mean. Vice versa. Then the British were continuing to impress our sailors, which is basically sort of like kidnapping. They would, if they actually caught a ship and forced the surrender of the ship, well, then they would take those American sailors off and put them on a British ship where they now had to work. So, violation of neutrality, impressment of sailors, all of these are going to lead Jefferson to declare an embargo. Now, an embargo is a refusal to trade, and the Embargo Act of 1807 forbids exporting goods from the United States. Now, this makes sense. Jefferson is thinking, Great Britain and France are both dependent on us for raw materials, for food. If we hurt them in those areas, they'll stop impressing sailors, seizing ships, all of these things, and honor our neutrality rights. But the problem is, if you stop exporting from your country, who are you hurting the most? Your country. And New England is screaming because they have no one to sell their manufactured items to, their lumber, their timber, all of those things. Farmers in the West, in the South, with tobacco, corn, all of these things, they have no market. Now, the rest of the world, yeah, they can sell to those countries, but legally they couldn't. There's going to be some smuggling, but our two biggest trade partners are Great Britain and France, and so we are really hurting ourselves more than we're hurting Great Britain and France. And so Congress goes ahead and repeals the embargo in 1809 and replaces it with the Non-Intercourse Act. And this resumed trade with everybody except Great Britain and France. So, yeah, the Dutch, a few other places, but for the most part, Great Britain and France are our two biggest trading partners. And so this is still really continuing to hurt our trade. One good thing that comes out of this is because we are not importing manufactured items from Great Britain in particularly, we do see New England begin to restart and build new factories, which are going to help usher in the Industrial Revolution into the United States. Jefferson chooses not to seek a third term in 1808, gladly gives up the presidency, supports his Secretary of State, James Madison, who wins and becomes the next president. Madison inherits this embargo mess. And so what they decide to do is the embargo's been repealed, and they decide to get rid of the Non-Intercourse Act too. And what they decide to do is kind of gamble here. And they pass Macon's Bill number 2. No, I do not know what Macon's Bill number 1 did, but number 2 said that we would reinstate our embargo against either Great Britain or France when the other country agreed to honor our neutrality. So in other words, if Great Britain would agree to stop impressing our sailors and seizing our ships that were trading with France and Great Britain, we would restore our embargo against France and continue trading with Great Britain. So we're giving up neutrality. Napoleon jumps on this opportunity. He doesn't outright say, okay, we won't seize or we won't punish you for trading with Great Britain, but he hints that he would be interested in doing that, and Madison is looking for an out because he doesn't trust Napoleon. But so, Madison counteracts and tells Great Britain, Napoleon's made this offer. If you'll agree to honor neutrality and, stop impressing and all of those things, we will, agree to continue trading with you. Great Britain did not respond, and so therefore we resume trade with France and place an embargo against trade with Great Britain. So we are at odds with Great Britain. Impressment of sailors and seizure of merchant ships are going to be two of our big reasons for ending up in war with Great Britain in 1812. The other one has to do with the opening west. Now, by west at this point, we're talking Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, that area of the country, specifically north of the Ohio River. We've got Americans moving into that territory more and more. Whenever we move west, whenever we start moving into new territory, it's going to cause problems with the Indians. In the western states or territories in particular, there's going to be this demand that the government do something to protect settlers from those Indian attacks. And the natives, of course, are seeing more and more people coming. They're seeing the writing on the wall. They're getting ready to lose their land again. And, it's time to fight back. So we do have Indian leadership under Tecumseh and his brother, and we have this major battle in Ohio, which is called the Battle of Tippecanoe River. And Tecumseh had organized all of the remaining tribes that were east of the Mississippi River in the Ohio Territory area to fight together. The Americans are led under William Henry Harrison, who was the governor of Indiana at the time and is later going to become president. At this battle, the Indians are defeated, and they give up basically fighting with the Americans in this area, and they retreat back into Canada where the British are still in control. So the idea, because we continue to have Indian attacks, is that the British are funding and arming Indians in Canada to attack into the United States, and so therefore we need to push the British out of Canada to eliminate that Indian threat. So there's going to be our third big push in Congress to go to war against Great Britain. We also have a new generation is coming in since the Revolution, and we have some very persuasive congressmen from the West, particularly Henry Clay, who's going to lead a group of Western congressmen called the War Hawks, who are going to be very vocal in demanding this war with Great Britain. New England was dead set against war with Britain. They're the ones that are doing the manufacturing and trade. They've already been devastated in their business from the embargo. Now, if we do invade and we're able to seize Canada from the British, that's going to open more and more Western states. That's going to upset the balance in Congress, and New England is really dead set against that. New England, throughout the war, and these are, of course, the states from New England, their governors refused to let their state militias serve in the army or to leave their states. They need the protection at home. They're going to loan and send food into Canada. They are going to loan the British money to help finance the war. And we'll talk about the effects that this has in New England when we talk about the results of the war. But causes of the war: American neutrality violated by the British. We make the deal with France, so we have to reinstate the embargo against Great Britain. We feel like they are instigating Indian attacks from Canada into the United States. And so with these two demands, we end up finally declaring war against Great Britain for the second time. So tomorrow night we will talk about major events of the war, mostly the effects or consequences of the war. See you tomorrow. Bye.